Episode 30 of the Talkin' Pop podcast. May the 4th be with you, everybody.
Did we plan this? Did we?
To have a milestone episode on May the 4th?
I mean, that's pretty cool. I'd like to say that we
is.
did it on purpose, but we did not.
It is pretty cool.
I love it.
It's an all Disney Plus day on the Talkin' Pop podcast because as a gift to us geeks on May the 4th, Disney and Lucasfilm dropped a second trailer for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I want to start off by reiterating something that I said to you, Brad, when you and I did our reaction episode to the first Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer. This show is giving me such a complex. It's making me self-conscious about myself because I have ripped Disney and Lucasfilm for relying on nostalgia constantly and not moving forward. My opinion, the two best things they've done have been Mandalorian and Rogue One. Yeah. And there are two things. While they exist in the past, they're new stories with new characters. And I have ripped them repeatedly about like relying on the Skywalker saga. Oh my God, here we go again. Another story to do with the Skywalker saga. Blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry. I am fired up for Obi-Wan Kenobi, baby.
Hell yeah.
Fired up. Let's go. Give me your thoughts on the trailer. Kelly, ladies first. We'll start with you.
So the one thing that actually stood out to me, which maybe isn't the take that you guys were expecting from me, is this show looks so expensive.
Yeah.
Like this is, as I was watching it, you know, when we're watching these Marvel shows, we're going to be talking about a Marvel show that we've been watching. Like they look great. The CGI is there. The special effects are there, but you can tell they're a little bit more on a TV budget. It does not feel this way in this trailer. And that was the one thing, because I think I'm kind of, I don't want to be spoiled anymore. So there's a little bit of me watching this trailer being like, la, 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 because I don't want to be spoiled. I really want this to be a surprise. So I was really kind of more.
It gives too much away though.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
No.
In fairness, it doesn't. But yeah, so, I was really just kind of taking in like the visuals of it, and what stood out to me was how incredible it looks. Also, just I have to call out like my favorite line in this trailer when he's talking about Luke and he says, that he needs to be trained.
Yeah,
it's like you trained us. I was like,
Uncle Owen.
Yeah,
Uncle Owen. Which is like really interesting to give context to that, because when in A New Hope, when Luke finds Ben Kenobi, it doesn't appear as though he's watching over him, but it doesn't appear as though he wants to train him. So I think maybe in this show, we're going to get a realization from Obi-Wan that I'm going to leave this kid alone.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. But kind of in that vein, I'll be interested as well. Just, like, what is it? Our listeners will have to tell me down in the comments. There's only supposed to be 15 years or something like that between you and Alec McGuinness. And so it's like, that's a big age jump. So I kind of wonder.
It's the stress. It's the stress.
Yeah, that's
he really ages.
Man.
Or maybe
Tatooine's a bitch.
Or maybe we get
all that sun.
Oh God, all the sand in my shoes.
Maybe we get a special Mace Windu cameo, and they do the thing again with the lightning, and that's what ages him so quickly. But
wow,
it's true.
I like that.
But I wonder the where I'm trying to get at here is I wonder how much we're gonna just sort of retcon and just sort of be like, that didn't, forget about that or forget about this. Like, I think there's going to be a little bit of that as well. I think there's going to be some explanation of how we get to A New Hope, but I wonder also if there's going to be a few liberties taken just to keep the story interesting and keep it moving because, between the prequels and A New Hope and where we pick up in A New Hope, it didn't seem as though much had happened in between, but this show is, showing us ultimately there's been quite a bit that's happened.
Yeah.
Brad, your thoughts?
Not in the same line of thinking as you saying you have a complex. I had a bit of a complex about the last trailer in the sense that score did a lot of heavy lifting for a lot of us, not in a bad way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Let me just be clear, because we were all like, oh my God, but it did make you question, like, okay, did they just catch us like really hard with that nostalgia kick with that original prequel, and we're just bought in, and just from that alone, I loved that they didn't do that again. We got whatever this
didn't go back to Duel of the Fates.
Correct. It didn't, or it didn't piggyback on the fact that it was like, that was a lot of people's big response and take from that trailer. Not only the new visuals and seeing everybody and whatever, but it was, everybody was going nuts about that score. And to have them keep up the pace. The pacing felt the same as the previous trailer, but they had it with some new, dialogue back and forth, some new action sequences without, again, giving too much away. But there was still that undertone of like, no, this is the trailer. This is the new theme that we're going with. This is the score. And I loved seeing that, because I actually felt the same. I felt the same as I did with the previous trailer, sans Duel of the Fates. So that was like a major, major takeaway for me. Kelly hit on so many of the major points. I'll just say this, and this is going to come to no surprise to anyone that watched it.
Oh yeah,
right at the end.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's the Vader sort of tease at the end, combined with the Inquisitor saying, "You can't hide from him." Yes, but there was such an elevated level of intensity. That we did get in the last trailer, but it felt like we jumped it up a notch. Like, we showed you guys a little bit in the other one, gave you that nostalgia kick to kind of bring you back around to this being another prequel of its own kind, I guess. To now being like, okay, we got you hooked. Now we're gonna reel you in with some of the intensity and the backstory of where these other characters are gonna line up, and not only that there is going to be an interaction that we never really knew maybe ever happened between Obi-Wan and Darth on the Death Star. So now we have, in whatever sense it would be, whether it's hologram or in person, we are getting, there was another interaction between where we left off. I think we're getting more than just an interaction.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But there was no real kind of clear cut, like, is that actually going to happen? And I think this made it pretty clear that there's going to be a showdown, which is, oh, buddy, I am just beside myself. I thought that last little, like, the whole trailer is great, but that last, I don't know, 5-10 seconds, I was jumping out of my chair. We get a brief look at Kumail Nanjiani. We don't know who he's playing, but we do know he's in the show. To put a bow on this, I want to pose a question that I posed to you in our previous episode talking about this, Brad, but I want to revisit this and get Kelly's take on it as well. Is it a miss for Disney and Lucasfilm to not be releasing this as a movie? Because I think you could make a boatload of money at the box office on this. And I think it's a miss. My personal opinion. And don't get me wrong, there's bonuses to doing a mini series. You can tell a 6-hour story as opposed to a 2.5-hour story. So that is definitely a bonus. But I just think, we talked a lot on this show about movie theaters and getting people out to the theater and what gets butts and seats and that sort of thing. And I just think, Ewan McGregor returning to the role of Obi-Wan, Hayden Christensen coming back, telling a new sort of story that everyone loves. I do think it's a miss for them to not have released this as a feature film.
So I do agree that this would have made a truckload of money at the box office. Like, there's no doubt about that. Star Wars gets butts and seats, and then you add in Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, and you're going to make a lot of money. Now, one is I'm going to be a little better equipped to answer this question as we get into the series and actually sort of get a sense of the story that they're telling. And then the other part of it is, there's been a lot of news chatter recently and about Netflix and about the not so great results that they've been experiencing and the dip in their valuation and things like that. And so there's part of me that actually thinks this is a stroke of genius from Disney, because what we're learning from this Netflix model and the Netflix story is you have to continue providing value to people. Like, I am much closer at this point to canceling my Netflix subscription than I am to canceling my Disney Plus subscription, because look at this episode. We're talking all about shows that are on Disney Plus.
It's true.
So there is part of me that thinks that they had to go this route because they've sunk so much money into standing up Disney Plus as a platform. They've got to justify it. And they've got to put content on there that's going to get subscribers, and this will get them subscribers. So not going to say it's a miss. I'll be interested to see if just as the show, we actually get to see the plot and how the show rolls out over the 6 weeks. It'll be an interesting conversation we can have at the end of whether it would have made sense to try and pack it into 2.5 hours.
That's literally what I was just going to say, Kelly. But that's really the deciding factor. Is we're not gonna have a clear-cut answer until we actually watch it, because the thing is, the question will be, did the content dictate it being a show? Like, what you want was the story that you wanted to tell. Was this a debate that went on at the studio where they went, listen, this is a really interesting story, and I think that this story would benefit from being told as a show or a miniseries, whatever you want to call it. Or did they go this route because it was a financial decision, like Kelly brought up, and go, we need something, we need more stuff to kind of fill this platform out, and this will be an attention grabber for sure. But in doing so, are they stretching out the story too much? To fill that 6 episodes or whatever. I'm assuming it's 6. It seems to always be 6. It
is 6.
Yeah. So that really will dictate the whole thing for me. But again, we're not going to know until we actually see it, because even if they did stretch it out, maybe it works being stretched out a little bit, because you were getting a little bit more of characters that we didn't get before. So who knows? I'm definitely curious. Either way, it's going to be, like Kelly said, the production value is there, which I think is the main thing. And I think that's also why we're talking about this the way we are, because it looks like a movie. It's got a clear movie budget behind it, which in and of itself, I think is interesting, because I think a lot of the shows, albeit they have a high production value, I don't know that we've seen one like this.
I tried to find the actual number online. It seems to be under wraps, at least for right now. But I was reading a blog, so take that for what it is, where the rumor mill was saying it's like 25 million an episode.
Yeah.
Which is, up with what they're doing at Amazon with the Lord of the Rings.
And we're gonna have to. Yeah. This is a different discussion for a different day, but it's. Kelly, you brought up the Netflix thing and having to pump out like top tier content. And it's like, these companies are going to have to start spending that kind of money on their shows to keep people's subscriptions.
But see, this is what we've constantly been talking about for a long time, where it's like, I don't know. They're going to okay, let me just say this. Everybody's in this kind of fantasy land right now, as far as like, Netflix spends X amount on Stranger Things and Amazon spends X amount on the Lord of the Rings series and Disney, blah, blah. That's only sustainable for a certain amount of time, because the thing is while you can still split passwords, while, even at a certain point, say everybody on the planet now has a subscription, that's only going to pay for the party for so long. And now this will turn into a commercial thing. Yes. Like you'll have to at some point make the shift into what they always said they were never going to be, because YouTube did the exact same thing. And everybody went, oh, YouTube is so awesome because we didn't do commercials. And then what happened? Just slowly. Now all of a sudden you can't watch a 5-minute video without there being commercials.
And they'll do the YouTube thing too, where if you want to watch this TV series on Disney Plus sans commercials, you're going to pay a serious premium for it.
Correct.
Yeah. So interesting, and time will tell. But that is not why we're here today. We're here to talk about another 6-episode event on Disney Plus. Moon Knight has come and gone. We just finished watching the season finale, Gods and Monsters. I'm not gonna say I disliked this, because there were moments in it that I quite liked and did land for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it, Kelly and I, right from the first episode of the show, were like, we're gonna get a giant monster fight in the finale, and we got a giant alligator versus Khonshu fight in this, and it was very like, we referenced Shang-Chi and how like right up until the final 15 minutes, it goes off the rails with the dragon on dragon violence.
Yeah.
And like this
dragon on dragon violence. Don't say that and expect me not to laugh.
And this does the same thing. And it's just, I particularly gushed about episode 5 and called it the best episode of television Marvel's ever put out. And then they follow it up with just a very formulaic, and I don't want to criticize Marvel for that, because Marvel is like, the formula works. They make truckloads of money. Like, I'm sure when we review Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness next week, like and subscribe so you don't miss it, we'll be talking about Marvel formula that we see in that too. Right. But at the same time, it's just like, you're riding such a high off episode 5. And this starts, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, as soon as they freed Amit and I got a good look at her, I went, oh boy, okay.
Yeah.
Mediocre CGI alligator god.
Yeah. Do you know what it was? And I'll say this. I'll say. I love that we're all just dancing around this episode. Okay. I'll say this. Anybody that is listening to this right now, go back and watch last week's episode, because I think we actually were right on hit the nail on the head on almost every single thing that we said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Rob, you had some takes. I had some takes. Kelly had some takes. And I think at the end of the day, we kind of got a mixed bag of all of the things that we had predicted, which was, I had said that this is going to clearly be a setup for things down the road. We're not going to get a complete story here. This isn't going to be wrapped up with a nice little bow. Check. The big fear was that we were going to get a big
monster fight.
Check. We were worried about time frame left on the show. We actually talked about this quite a bit, because I said, do we have a time frame yet? Do we know what the episode length is? We said we were hoping for an hour and a half minimum. 43 minutes.
With credits.
Half of credits. Half of the runtime that we were hoping for in order to really flesh out this series, this season, because I was of the mindset we weren't going to get a finished product here. I didn't particularly want a finished product and have some other new story being told that just kind of feels shoehorned or whatever. I like the fact that it's going to continue. And I think they actually did that really well, especially with the mid-credit scene, not to skip ahead. But the thing for me was it felt rushed. Mm-hmm. It felt rushed. I was concerned about that. So that concern, again, check. We were pretty bang on. On. While it wasn't a bad episode of television, I don't think at all. It was not the best episode. Disappointing. I felt a little cheated just because I think that you could have done without some of the big battles or the big whatever, or it be quicker or something, just to get to the real emotional crux of what had been built. And save that big crescendo for a season down the road. I think that would have been so much more interesting. So yeah, I think Kelly, it was. I don't think it was a miss.
Patiently sitting there waiting to give her take.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that I'll say, I've been sort of up and down on the show, but if I had to sort of encapsulate, it's this show was interesting until it just wasn't. And I just thought everything in this episode made everything that was previously interesting uninteresting.
I don't disagree with that.
You know what I mean? It was we didn't get the sort of bombshell revelations about, him being in the hospital and that ended up just being kind of like, oh, it's just because he was dead. Like, that's just what it was. Like maybe there's more to it, but we didn't get it right now. Mm-hmm. And Brad, you and I said this last week, the Stephen Grant death was undone in this episode, which from the story perspective, I understood
that worked for me.
It was okay.
I understood him coming back, and I liked that he has sort of mastered his domain in terms of being able to switch between the two. Where can I just interject there, Kelly? Yeah.
I really liked during the fight against Taro how they were switching back and forth between Moon Knight and Mr. Knight. And that's very Marvel to inject that.
I liked all that. All that. What I didn't like was them just touching hearts and it just seemed too simple a solution to undo this horrific. You left that last episode being oh my God, basically, even though they're two sides of the same coin, his best friend basically just died, the person who has protected him from so much trauma and just abuse has died.
Yeah.
But you know how you fix it? Just go and touch his hand and tell him you love him. And it was just so.
It was a little.
It was so uninteresting. And then I think what also I really realized in this episode more than the others is the central conflict in this show, which was about resurrecting Amit and all that, actually had nothing to do with Mark Spector and Stephen Grant. And so you have this fight at the end, and there's no, other than him just kind of coming to save the day, there was a really shoehorned in line from Arthur Harrow that's your brother could have lived, Randall could have lived. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? That's out of nowhere. And so I just wasn't feeling the connection between the storyline that we'd taken to understand Mark Spector as a character and the duality, and now, whatever the 3 version of duality is. And so
try something,
whatever. There was that storyline, and then there's the Amit resurrection storyline. And then
there's the Layla becoming Tauret's avatar.
That's what I'm saying. So much was wedged in. And you didn't have to do that all in one episode. Stretch it into next season or whatever. So
we come back to what we discussed last week, where, all of these Marvel series have had their highs and their lows, but consistently, all of them have struggled with pacing problems. And I think it's a formula that they're going to have to iron out, because, and I don't know if 6 episodes is I don't know why we've settled on 6. Can we do 8? Can we do why does it have to
I don't even think that's necessary, Rob, because we go into the theater and we see stories told in 2 hours that are more
engaging,
complete, and wholesome,
if done properly,
than 6 hours. This is it's a little under 6 hours because most episodes are ranging 45 minutes, but it's I don't think it's the length of time. I think what ends up happening is they keep this show reminded me a lot of WandaVision, actually, where it's we're going to spend 4 episodes making you question what you're seeing. At the end of the 4th episode, we're going to reveal to you what it is that you're seeing. And then we get to the end and we have to create a new superhero. We got that with Rambo in WandaVision. And this one, we've got to make Layla a superhero. Even if we look at Hawkeye, it's all of that was really just to be and here's Kingpin. They spend too much time with setup, and then ultimately whatever the sort of answer is to the questions that they pose are just deeply dissatisfying.
Yeah, it's like we have 4 episodes where it's like set up, and then you get to episode 5 and it's like twist, and then you're like, oh, whoa, what am I watching? And then by the time you get to the end of episode 5, they're like, oh shit, we got to wrap up all this stuff that we started in the first 4 episodes with a big fight. Yeah,
I think that's where Rob is right. Where we're all right in a sense here, because on one hand, Kelly is saying that this story could have been told, I think, in a 2.5 hour to whatever window, 2 hours and 40 minutes if you want. But but by the same token, the way that they've taken this story and they really want to flesh it out, that's fine. Like Rob, you're saying, but then if you can't do it in 6 episodes, do it in 7, do it in 8.
Yep.
Like have a 2-part finale. One episode is that full. I think they almost need to back engineer that last episode, and it could have been a lot of that. Still back and forthing, even with the Jake Lockley reveal at the end. That could have
shout
been
out to me, because I said last week I think Jake Lockley's coming in the post-credits scene.
Shout out to me. Shout out to you, Rob. Yeah. Shout out to you. Yeah. Let's hear it from Rob.
Yeah. Shout out to me. I called that.
But like there was so much nuance that I still think they were trying to get to, but they felt rushed for time, and then they kind of go, but the action. What about the action? And then they. But that's my point.
It's your property
show
on your streaming service. Like, how the hell? If you want to do 30 episodes, you can.
Yeah, like this is the cash cow. Like
this is the thing I was going to say too, and I do think that there's a deeper conversation that goes on with this, and it fully circles into the Obi-Wan conversation, which is what is the budget per episode? Because if they are saying this is the budget for the whole thing, then they have to break it down to a certain amount of episodes.
Yeah, basically, with the Marvel shows, basically what the model is they take a movie budget and they slice it over 6 episodes.
Yes.
So that's why the episode CGI doesn't look as great, etc.
Correct. And I think also the CGI was probably the weakest in this episode versus any of the other episodes where there were moments of CG. Oh my
god, man! That took me. Like I can literally watch Rocket, and I know it's like Rocket has been in Avengers movies and like, but I get that, but it's like I can believe that there is a talking raccoon and a talking tree on the screen when I watch Guardians or the Avengers movies. Again, I know it's not apples to apples. As soon as they resurrected Amit in this episode, I went, oh no. Like I literally said that in my head.
Yeah.
The one shot where
she looked like a Ninja Turtles villain.
Where she's like eating the souls and she's getting bigger. And I'm like, oh my. Like,
well, okay. And here's my thing.
So silly.
Here's my thing. This is for anybody that's not already aware of this. A really easy sign to see when they are struggling with the budget for CG is it's dark. They're trying to keep it as dark as possible. And Amit, especially when she is first revealed, is in like the deepest shadows possible to try to keep it so that it's textured still and looks realistic enough. But even like there was bandages coming off the sides of her faces that just didn't look right. And this was, I also thought, the weakest reveal of Moon Knight's costume forming on him that we had seen. The other scenes where we had gotten it previously in the earliest episodes of the show was I felt like looked hyper detailed, and this did not. In this episode, it just didn't. It didn't look nearly as good. It looked like Oscar Isaac's head was floating a little bit, and it was kind of like, oh boy, man, this is rough to say the least. And I'm not trying to just. I don't want this to be a whole like dump episode on this.
No. It's
because
I
think in totality, I think the show was actually one of the stronger things they put out, and I think it took a half step back for us, like Rob had said, that we were on such a high with episode 5, and then this kind of made you go like you tripped at the finish line a little bit. You didn't fully like not cross the finish, but it was like a little like the arms were flailing and we're trying to just keep our balance to get over that finish line. And I just think that, you know, if this is the case, Disney, come on. Like, don't act like you don't got the money. And I mean that with love. I respect Disney through and through. I think they put out so much unbelievable content the last decade. But if like not forever, but to see them just kind of it almost to feel a little bit like a budget constraint in the finale of what has been a very successful and liked / loved show. Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't think like in as a whole, I would say this is one of like if I was going to rank all the Disney shows, I would put this at or near the top of the list with Loki. I think what we're pointing out here is this is now a trend. Like this isn't a coincidence. Like this is repeated that they're putting out their Marvel series and they all have pacing problems and they all end with a little bit of a wah wah and like the only thing, quite frankly, that saved Loki from ending like that was the Kang reveal. And even then, that only worked for us because we're three nerds who know who Kang is and know where they're going with Kang. If you're Joe Schmo who's just watching, who doesn't know who He Who Remains is, you're kind of like, who's this guy?
I still liked Loki, and not to because we don't need to go down a whole road here of like dissecting every single show. First of all, we don't have the time. But secondly, the thing for me was it's like I felt like this was a step better than Loki, and I really liked Loki. But again, you're right. It just like there were so many moments in Loki where I just was like I would buy in, and then things would drag, and then I would buy in, and then things would drag, and then I would buy in. And then we'd put pedal to the metal at the last second and then pull it back. Like it just seemed like there is no real consistent pacing. And that's not always a bad thing, but it's just like the inconsistencies, though, are bleeding into all of the shows where it's kind of like, you got me, you're losing me. You got me, you're losing me. You're losing me, you're hitting the gas, and then the show's over. And so, I'm finding that this has been probably the cleanest show that they've put out as far as pacing, but still,
tripped at the finish line.
It's still tripped at the finish line. And I think this one is different in that with the others, at least you had prior knowledge of the characters, and so there was an element of I am with you guys. I think all of these shows have missed the mark to a certain extent, not completely and totally, but like there are things about them that have not hit the mark. But I found myself, because when you guys last week were talking about Moon Knight, and you were saying that episode 5 was the best episode that they put out because of the emotional crux. Why I wasn't there with you is because actually for me, the most emotional moment in any of these shows so far has been like at the end of WandaVision with Vision ultimately, like them, right? And it's because you bring with you all the baggage of the universe that we've seen, right?
We've already gotten that.
Whereas this one's tricky. They did I give this show a ton of credit. All of the like emotional character work that they did to establish the relationship and dichotomy of Mark Spector and Stephen Grant was expertly done. Like I am there with you.
Yeah.
It's I don't give a damn about Layla. And so you're at the end and you're supposed to have this triumphant moment. And especially they actually like made an effort. And I say this actually in a good way, not in a mocking way. Like they have someone say like, are you an Egyptian superhero? Because they're trying to really call out, like, look at the diversity that we're sort of achieving here. Right. And so I can totally understand that if you are someone who's been looking for representation that way, that Layla's character may resonate with you.
Highly exciting for them. Sure. Yeah.
But from a character development standpoint, like this means nothing. Whereas
you did her dirty a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas at least in some of the other shows, some of the side characters, you were still bringing in a little bit of your past movie. This was a clean slate. So in that case, in that sense, I actually think this show does deserve a lot of praise because it was actually a completely clean slate.
Yeah.
It's just, the landing, this ending, sticking the landing problem is a problem. Big problem.
Yeah. So I will say, we're clearly season 2 will feature the sort of integration of Jake Lockley, and that worked for me. I thought that was cool. It's interesting. It's true. I know last week you guys spoke about the significance of letting Steven go, but the character is balancing those 3 personalities, like the comic book character, right? So
I agree. Like I said, I think the way they resurrected him was a little cheesy. Yeah. But then the interplay between the two was fun, and that good Marvel fun.
Yes,
100%. So let's give this a letter grade. Let's have a little fun and give this a letter grade. I'm going to give this show a B+. I'm going to say Oscar Isaac, incredible job. Like he carried this show for me with his performance week in and week out, balancing those 2 characters. Even at the very end of this episode where he's back sort of in the room with psychiatrist Harrow, and he's literally going back and forth between Steven and Mark and his accent, no accent, accent, no accent. Fantastic. Incredible. Kelly, you hit it on the head about how they sort of developed a bunch of new characters, and I thought that really worked. But again, sticking the landing, giant Power Ranger monster fight at the end. It gets a B+ from me. Kelly, go ahead.
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a B-. But I will sort of stipulate that I think the highest grade I would give any Marvel show is a B. Okay. They just continue to underwhelm me a little bit, and they have their highs and they have their lows. The high in this is certainly Oscar Isaac and his performance.
Ethan Hawke too.
Ethan Hawke's performance was great. I think at the end, not that his performance wavered, but I just felt what happened to his character wasn't all that interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I think, it's kind of what I said at the beginning. This show had a lot of promise and it was so interesting, and then it just kind of wasn't at the end. So B- for me, but that's on a pretty tough rating scale for me.
Right. Yeah, no, as soon as you said B+, that's exactly where my head was at. Not because of the acting. I thought everybody in the cast did an incredible job. I thought there was so much emotion, and I'm talking about everybody from the top, maybe being Oscar Isaac, all the way to the bottom of, singular episode parts where it was, the actress playing Steven and Mark's mom, and there were so many I actually thought really, really good performances here that kudos to the director, kudos to the script writers. I just thought that there was a lot of stuff there, for lack of a better word, stuff. So from that perspective, from an acting perspective, but overall storytelling throughout, if we're going to take it as an entirety, I would give it a B+, just because I thought there were times where it felt really strong and we were in. That is obvious. Again, if you watched last week's episode, we were gushing, but this episode a little flat for sure. So that definitely brings the mark down. I will say this, that now that we are, I think, have reached a point where now we are going to have a lot of shows that have had their first season. Whether they are going to get a second season is an important factor. So something like a WandaVision, I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so. Loki, maybe, but I don't think so.
I think Loki is coming back for season 2.
Okay, confirmed.
Yeah.
Okay, well then there you go. So Loki, yes. Moon Knight, yes.
I think the other two are
Falcon and the Winter Soldier is questionable.
Well, you've got a Captain America movie coming out. So
there you go. Right.
That's the follow-up to that.
So that's the follow-up. So really you're left with Loki and most likely Moon Knight, unless they decide to do a movie for Moon Knight. That is what makes this so tricky, is because I don't really like to give a full score for something until a season, or not a season, sorry, a series is done, because you have to look at it in its entirety. So Moon Knight going forward, hopefully that wasn't the end of Ethan Hawke. It looks like it was supposed to be, but who knows? So this going forward, I'm actually very hopeful for what they're going to do. I think there's going to be some fleshing out of pacing. Maybe Disney ups the budget, and doing so will actually give them more time to flesh it out even more. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for this show going forward, but as it sits right now, B+, acting A.
Well, when we return next week, the Marvel just keeps on coming because they just keep serving us up content, more and more content.
They got us.
We will be back on Monday night with a full spoiler review and breakdown of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This movie, I've been looking forward to it. We've all been looking forward to it, but I just kind of had this moment this week where I was like, oh my God, like this movie's out. We're going to see it.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
It snuck up on me this time. I don't know how.
It did. So hit that like and subscribe button below. Make sure you don't miss that. Really looking forward to this. There's certain times where like we sit down to review something where it's like, okay, we got to get through this. This is not one of those. This is not one of those. This
is a treat.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to see where this movie goes. And once again, hit the like and subscribe. Make sure you don't miss that. And we will catch you guys on Monday night. See you then.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.